Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? We're as good as you can be after you roll out of your bed and have a seizure on a metal chair leg that beats the living hell out of your shoulder. Yes, that happened Tuesday night, Monday, or Wednesday morning. So that's where we've been. It's kind of beat up, beat up. Yeah, it happens about every few months, you know. So there, that is, you know. Now I could take pills to keep it down, but they also suppress my personality. They make me a chemical Untermenschen. It's the nicest way to say it. A literal chemical Untermenschen, as in far less than I am now. Much less intelligent, less motivated, everything. You know, less attached to life. So in other words, they make my life more quality according to these pharmacologists and such. They basically have to take away everything worth actually being alive for. No, no. I'd rather just suffer every once in a while. And there's no real nice word other than suffering for. Well, imagine this. You go to bed. You're in bed. Okay. You wake up in your front room with your arm. It was pretty bashed. I mean, there's a nice bruise that runs right across, and it fits right with where this armrest on this chair is. I mean, I laid it on there and was like, oh my God. Then I thought to myself, how the hell did I fall across this without smashing my face? I don't know. Hands of angels. I really don't know. There's hundreds of times this kind of weird stuff has happened. You know, I fell one time right into a metal door with seizure. I mean, wham! Didn't even affect me. Not even a bruise. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. You know. Frankly, some of the stuff that's happened really should have messed me up. I look at it like God. God's my friend. You know. Right? Not many people may like me, but God surely likes me. And you can say that He doesn't because He punished me with this. Yeah, I don't view it as a punishment. I view it as a test, as a exercise to strengthen a person. That's right. You see, it'd be easy for me to hate God and this and that and all the other. It would be easy for me to do this. Easy for me to run right off to science and bow at their feet and, oh, help me, save me, please, please, please. No, I won't do that. You see? Right. And before people play with the pray you'll be healed, my great grandfather was a faith healer. You couldn't fix this if you tried with healing. Okay, so stop. If I can't fix it, you surely can't. Okay, so let's get to that. Right? There is no prayer that'll fix it. This is not a prayer issue or a faith issue. Okay, there's a chemical maladjustment with a small organic bit of damage right about here that causes cognitive misfires. That's it. There's no prayer about it, you know. Right? Now, of course, it is one of those things you simply have to accept. There's nothing to be done, you know. There's be like I am now, which to me this is normal, you know, right? Or I can be a mushroom, literally a mushroom. That's exactly the level of intellect that I have on the anti-seizure, anti-convulsant drugs they gave me. Literally, the mushroom. 40 IQ points less than I have. Just like that. You think I'm giving up 40 IQ points just not to Twitch? You've lost your fucking marbles. Right? No way. Because again, doctors consider all this to be normal. Well, I prefer to be exceptional, not normal. Fuck normal. Right? Right. Right. Normal people would be at the doctor right now crying about how they need codeine and painkillers and so forth. I don't even want the things. Because I realize that taking those pills starts a cycle, you know, that will end in another seizure. You see how this works? I have to be very careful about what I put in my body. Very careful, you know. So I can't just willy-nilly just take pills when doctors hand them to me. Oh, no. Particularly not neurotransmitter, you know, boosters or disruptors. No, that's all just barely balanced as it sits, you know. Can't be fine-tuning that. I found, through experience at least, that if I try to take serotonin, drugs that mess with serotonin, you know, like Prozac and so forth, bad, man. It can be bad. Like, it'll either lock me fully into manic, and I mean, when I say manic, I mean like, you know, way too happy, right? Or super down the other. There's no middle ground. It knocks the middle right out. No way. Zoloft. One time the doctor said, oh, maybe you knew some of this. I said, well, okay, I've never heard of it. All right, you know. They were kind of new at the time. I really hadn't done that much study on them. Okay. But compared to the other things they wanted to give me, it had a relatively safer product safety sheet, you know, right? So I said, oh, okay. Sure, why not? Whew. No way. No way, man. I mean, that, if I had to describe what that was like, it was like being ripped in two and being fought against each other. I mean, it was, oh, no way, you know? I mean, the only ones that have ever really worked that are effective are highly addictive, you know, and nobody would want to take them daily. For instance, Valium. Valium do work. They keep the stress down and help keep the seizures are less under it, you know, for sure. Because anxiety and the seizures feed on each other, you know, right? However, if the Valium runs out, you'll be flopping within a couple of days, you know, you see? So it's like, I think I'd really just take the chance of flopping every once in a while. Because remember, Valium withdrawal is really terrible. They never tell you this when they get you on these anti-anxiety drugs. They never tell you this. Or if they do, they use really mild euphemisms like return anxiety. Return my ass. It comes back in force and you literally feel like you want to die for about an hour or two after the stuff comes out of your system. It's horrible. Horrendously horrible, right? God. And I'm not the only person this happened to. I've watched this several people that they did this to. In prison, they like to do this. They like to play games with people down in the hole. They'll cut people off their medicines and just watch them go through mental anxiety and mental anguish for fun. For fun, these pig guards do this in jail. For fun. Okay? And let's say that, yes, they fucking do. I've watched it hundreds of times. Okay? Pig motherfuckers do whatever they want in there. So any talk about how they're good people, no, they're not. Most of them are scum. Right? They're scum. It takes a real amount of trash to play with people's brain chemistry while you're in jail. That's Soviet levels of scumbaggery. Okay? That's one of those, you'll notice, I don't do the idealized all white people are good. No, most of the people who work for the Zog are trash. Because the Zog is trash, you know? You see? And again, they think it's funny to play these games. That's when I learned, never get on those things. You know, just don't, you know? Don't get me wrong. For occasional use of anxiety suppression, it could probably be useful. Okay, you know, if you're one of those people with anxiety so bad, you know, you can't eat, you can't sleep, sure, a little dose every now and then is probably useful for you, you know. But once you get onto that sustained cycle, if you get off that cycle at all, it all comes back multiplied. Now, what can you do about that? Excuse me, folks. I had a bubble in my guts, a little air bubble there. This is not wise to do to yourself. You understand? So what I'm saying is, if you have mild anxiety, use something like valerian root, you know? Use 5,5-HTP, these kinds of things, you know? These are mild neurochemical boosters which are far less dangerous than any of these pharmacological drugs, and they don't have the return anxiety problems, well, as bad, you know? Not near as bad, okay? Valerian root doesn't get you zooted like Valium, sure enough. It doesn't. You just don't get high. I mean, you could eat 20 of them, I guess, and get a little, but no. But it will help you sleep. It helps me sleep, and I have, you know, epilepsy and anxiety to the hilt. You know, I used to have petit mal seizures all the time in my sleep. It was wretched, right? But it does help me sleep. Helps me calm down a little. You know, nothing wrong with that. The other one, the HTP5, it effectively boosts dopamine levels, but not very high. Just high enough to keep keep anxiety and depression down a touch. You know, it's much more mild than any of the mood stabilizers, mood enhancers, such and so forth that they hand out now. Those are all dangerous. They're all dangerous. And I don't care what your doctor says or what you believe. If you believe your doctor, it's because you're uneducated and you're a pro. And if your doctor believes what he's telling you, it's because he's uneducated and a pro. Because you see, those pills were designed by Soviet psychiatry type people to control your mind. That's all they do. That's what they do. They don't bring you health. They don't bring you well-being. They control your mind. Okay? Now you can say, well, on them I feel good and without them I feel sad. And that's probably true. I'm not even going to deny that. But the sadness is caused by some problem in your life. Some problem that you need to resolve. And taking the pills hides that problem. It masks that problem. It covers that problem. Okay? And that's what society is all about that. Now, it's not to say that there aren't people who aren't so chemically imbalanced that they can probably use some of these pills. Sure, there is a small percentage of people that fit this bill. But most people are not this chemically unbalanced, Okay, not at all. They're just normal people with mild imbalances that are really, what's wrong with them is they have real sadness or real, anger or whatever that they've bottled up, okay? Not some problem in their head. It's real things that happen to them that they don't square with. They haven't savvied in their brain, It isn't all leveled out for them yet. Taking pills doesn't help that. It actually stops the process of dealing with the pain, assessing it, and going to the root of the problem and fixing it. Now I know this, okay? You can say whatever you like, but I mean, I've been given pharmacological drugs since 2 hours after birth. The first drug I was ever given was phenobarbital, for fuck's sakes. Okay? Phenobarbital, barbiturate for a baby. Think your fucking head do that. Put your head around that. I mean, that's how stupid these clowns are. Barbiturates for a baby. I slap that doctor if he was still alive. Backhand him. My God. What a moron. Who in the hell would give a baby barbiturates? Okay, now, to be honest, I do have extremely, massively, severely convulsionary seizures. They're not moderate. They're not moderately convulsionary, right? They're now at my size. If you tried to grab me when I went into one, I could fucking beat you. Probably beat you to death and not know I did it. Okay? You just don't want to touch me when I start going in convulsions. You're going to want to stay away and let me beat myself and thrash against stuff and just ignore it. Just ignore it. I'll be fine. You won't if you try to interfere. I'll kick the living fuck out of you. My body is programmed to defend itself. You just don't want to try to grab onto me when I'm in the middle of one of those. As a baby, I bloodied my mom's nose for her trying to pick me up. Just kicked her right in the mouth. So, you probably are not going to be safe if my mom wasn't. Just going to say. Right? And of course, the problem isn't that my thrashing, it doesn't bother me, in the sense that, yeah, I'm wore through the knot hole today, I do feel like somebody pounded me backwards, But, the pain in the shoulder that I have right here is, it's doable. It's sustainable. It's not, oh, God. Not as bad as it could be, given that I've dislocated this shoulder before. So, it's not as bad as it could be. It's just just tissue damage up in here, up along the, how I fell on this and hit myself across, like, basically here, like this, and not smack. Who knows? I don't know. But I also know this little knob down here on the floor, so a metal knob is exactly the same size as the bruised tissue area right in here. You see? That's just stuff I have to deal with. This is not unnormal, I mean, every now and again I'll wake up with a finger broke from thrashing in my sleep, smash it up, get it knotted up in the blankets, whatever, right? You just gotta reset your fingers and go on. That's what you gotta do. The other day I woke up with my middle finger popped out 3 weeks ago. Well, it popped out. No idea. Couldn't tell you. No clue. Right? Just put it back in place and went on. Because that's all there's to do, Now, anyone asks, do I leave? No. I mean, I've had people watch me when I was younger. I just thrash and then wake up right? Because remember, too, if you try to help me in the middle of this, if I do come to, from this, come out of it, I'm going to be freaked out that you're there. You understand? Freaked out. So it's probably just best as it doesn't help me and it doesn't help you, It doesn't help anyone to try to stop me from doing this, I've had lots of people, girls, like they were going to mother this, and it's like, hey, lady, if this happens, get the fuck back and just let it happen, I don't know. Girlfriends that just got pummeled from this, it's like, I don't have to tell you, lady, I have epilepsy, and I done fucking told you. You know what I mean? If I'm in my sleep and start twitching and shit, get the fuck back off what I'm doing and just stay away. You know? Don't mother me and don't try to fucking be kind because, oh yeah, it ain't gonna help. Oh, you don't love me. It's like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? That's numbnutted. That's girl think, you know? Has no validity. God dang, my nose is all. That's the one side's all kind of nice, the other one's not. From being punched in the face too many times, you see. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Oh, you know, we're not too bad. You know, there's always that one in there. And so you get the one that says, well, obviously, because I tell you that I want to be free of this PC tyranny, I want to be a tyrant myself. I mean, what could be more logical? Right? Now, I blame liberal education, and by that I mean the whole spectrum of PC liberal all the way to cuckatard conservative. They're one entity. They're kind of, I don't like to use the communist terms, but the bourgeois, the capitalist, the wealth class is creation, right? And it's meant to make you dumb. It's meant so that you can't draw proper conclusions because you apply nonsense ideas to reality, and so logic fails. Reason kaput, right? Okay. So again, let's run through this just one more time for fun, shall we? If each of you men and women, okay, because women live in a stable household that would have a stable income, and you wouldn't be under a debt wheel, right? You'd have a husband who work his ass off. And this isn't, you may not think that's some great glory, but it is basically what has proven to be successful fundamental building blocks of a good, well-ordered society, right? That's just the truth. There's a complementary relationship between men and women. It's not necessarily equal. Men shouldn't try to be women. Women shouldn't try to men. They should try to be men. They should kind of try to specialize. And yeah, the family home with the monogamous marriage that is sort of as a home connected into an extended family on both sides, both the mother and father side. Uh, you know, that's your basic block, societal block, living entity block. There it is, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. That's how real humans live. And so, the capitalist notion or the modern notion or the liberal notion or even the communist notion of the individual, they're all garbage. Man is a singular unit, but he works in groups too. It's one time. It's at the same time these happen. They're not in any way. There's no conflict between them. They just are both true and that way. The conflict is in the ill thinking that there's some group that's abstract from yourself and some individual that's an abstract from yourself, and that you can be in one or the other of these categories. The categories themselves are false, right? Humans are part of a living whole. We're a gregarious animal. That means we basically operate in friendly units. We can call them packs or herds or whatever you'd like to. I don't care what terminology you'd like to use. But effectively, something like, say, 5 families at about 50 people is the normal kind of, and these families are sort of an extended family, like a small clan. There you go, right? This builds up into a tribe, that builds up into, do you know what I mean? Right? And all this family and home, and so this builds a sort of a norms, a heritage, a customs,
customary understanding of what's correct. And this isn't really fixed throughout time. I'm sorry. It isn't universal. You know, whites value one set of things, others value other things. They can value those things, wherever. Okay. But you see, but no matter where you go, you have to have some kind of bang bang between mommy and daddy for everybody to exist. I mean, all humans, this is true, you know. But what values they have in these families is there. That's there's where people part camps, both as individuals and just groups. It's just a simple fact that certain groups of people tend to have certain sets of outlooks and values. This isn't just accidental, you know. It has both a cultural component and a biological component. That is an instinctual and an educated component. Okay? To which extreme? I don't know. But I know they're both there and they work in kind of a synergy together. Right? This isn't it isn't rocket science, particularly when you give up the out of Africa one world people nonsense, which is it's just bunk. Some kind of multi-regional theory where there's a white people who have at least two lines, the Neanderthal and another that these others don't have, right? The Africans, the blacks, the Bantus, you know, and such, who have at least 2 to 3 lines that nobody else has. The Asians, which are identifiable all the way back to to their Homo erectus bones, or they have a flat face and so forth, you know, right? And the Aborigines and so forth, and there are a couple other smaller groupings, some of which still exist and some of which don't, and so forth, you know, right? But to pretend these are all one is it's hokey. One group has genes and bloodlines in it that the other doesn't. How can they be one? Right? One developed in a cold environment that was mountainous and then got warm and mountainous and warm and glacial and warm, you know, right? Another developed on an open area that was, you know, glacial, cold, warm, cold. Another developed in the tropics, which was not as cold and never got, you know, right? How can they all be the same? That's ridiculous. Particularly if you believe in their version of Darwinian pressure selection and so forth. To think that they could all be the same is retarded. So some kind of multi-regional, that is, these people have a common ancestor way back, but it goes way back beyond this African Eve nonsense, right? That is only true, I'll say, for the people above the desert. You see, there, sure, there could have been all kinds of gene transfer because, okay, little tip, where the Mediterranean is now, that was just a valley, a sunken valley at one point. It had, from all indications, it was quite fertile. And then the sea level rose up and boom, and flooded it in, and then sort of surge flooded what is the Dardanelles and the Black Sea. Yeah, right? And the Baltic was dry too, and so was most of the North Sea at one time, and all of the English Channel, and quite a bit of the French coast going out miles from the current coastline, miles. So you see, there's a lot that we don't quite exactly know for sure. But what's obvious is that if one set of people has Neanderthal, and this other Doggerland people in it, right, and these others don't, right. Also, if one people's teeth have been the same in Europe for 2.5 million years, how come we all have some common Eve ancestor that's only a million years old? That's ridiculous. You see? So, and same with the Chinese. The face structure is the same on pre-human bones. The same. It's to pretend we're all one is just the most loop-a-toop, commie gibberish ever, right? And yeah, once you're free of that, people, you don't have to worry about it. The fact is that yes, that one set of people who lived in a super cold environment would have selection for sort of, caring and taking care of each other isn't crazy. That these other people who never lived in this intense environment wouldn't, totally expected. You see, right? Because, the African savannas, rough as they may be in a Stone Age environment, are nothing compared to Europe. Okay? You know, Food's much more plentiful. There's far less predators. The landscape, you can move around more readily to where you need to go, and so forth, right? The climatic change over the year was far less extreme, and so forth, on it goes. And the Chinese lived in an even colder environment. However, there's kind of some strange. They they too, though, as you'll notice, are hive. They can get very hive-minded, very parochial. You know, they just all go about it in a different way than whites, and it's because the environment they were in was different. Oh my God, they have slightly different descent than us. Commonality, but not identical. Do you know how this works? Right? And the commonness is way back further again than this Eve. Look, there's a lot of evidence for this. For black bones that are older than they should be, white type teeth, bones, skulls, fingers, and so forth that have been found all over Europe that again are much older than they should be if we all branched off when they say, you see, and Asians and Australasians and so forth. Okay? Do you know? It's it's not really controversial. Gene mapping seems to prove exactly what I'm saying. You know that certain groups of people have ancestors that other groups don't, so we can't all be the same. The subset of our genetics are different. Our environments were different. The environmental pressures put on us were different. The cultures we built up were different. You know, the blacks have like animistic religions. We have idealistic religions. The Asians tend to go with materialistic, result driven type religions. Okay? Wham. And they tend to be ethnocentric. That's the Koreans, the Japanese, the Chinese, particularly, but also the Vietnamese, the Cambodians, the Laotians, and so forth. They're extremely ethnocentric. It's genetic. It's good. It's fine. I'm cool with this. Do you understand? Right? It shouldn't even be, I don't know, controversial to speak of. To be true, it should just be, I don't know, just a statement of fact. The humans are not all descended from some primordial Eve unless we want to go back well, well before the so-called first Homo, whatever it is, now, and going to some kind of Australopithecine like Lucy or something, being our last common ancestor. But even there, in the Australopithecines that have been found, there's speciation shown. That is, certain sets of them have skulls that fall within measurements that match this set of kind of black and that kind of black and these and that and the other. Okay, no. Again, moreover, you see those small jungle people all over, sort of the belt from India there, up and across into Australasia, Borneo, and so forth. Wow, there was a hominid, a human ancestor, found out there that's small and squat and so forth, just like they are. Weird. And I'm going to wager that the skull and finger bone and arm proportion and all that, leg proportions, are well within the norms for these people, though they're probably a little taller now than they were then. Yep. You see, this knowledge that, it just completely blows any idea of a common ancestor, like the Eve, which is, they're trying to work on on biblical mojo to try to impress people. But they don't really have the evidence for this. The evidence indicates some kind of multi-regional theory. And the more and more the bones are dug up, and the better the dating techniques get, the more the evidence tends to indicate that this common ancestor gets a lot further back in the past, to where it's almost like since all known time, all recorded time, all time since there were Stone Age tools being chipped away at, right? That there's been a sort of a white ape species, a dark ape species, a yellow peach ape species, those sort of other colored people who live down here in South, and so forth, It's almost like that. This is what the bones, because remember, the lake dweller people, who existed quite a great deal before modern Europeans, the same basic skull measurements as modern Europeans, you know. Right? There was a tooth found not too long ago. It's supposedly like 2.5 million years old. The teeth measure right within the norms for modern Europeans. Tooth was found in an area that when the Danube was at a much, because it was a much larger river at one time, that where the tooth was found would have been in one of its sort of the fan drain delta, and it would have been quite fertile, quite nice, frankly, for that period. But the point is that, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? Right? Moreover, it's known that again that the sub-Saharan blacks have at least two and possibly three homo um, lines of descent that the rest don't have. Sort of like Neanderthals are in whites. Well, there's a three in these. Well, if these are different, we can't be the same. It's the most ridiculous thing ever. Moreover, if there was actual, across the cousins, genuses, mixtures, this just blows their whole entire little straight chain, First we went like this and went all up like this. Just boom, blows that right out of the water. Just shoots that right entirely down. It shows that speciation, which you might call racination, or, is much older than they'd like to admit to. Okay? So most likely, a very long time ago, people in the general European area, and probably including a great deal of what is North Africa and the Middle East now, looked, that's right, Europeanish. And south of the desert, they looked like Timbuktu people. Yeah. And then, the Browns and the Australasians and the Chinese and so forth, And everyone else can be explained as some kind of hybrid between groups of these, every other people. Much more readily than this one race, Eve nonsense, Yeah. At any rate. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Now, folks, I have a few things about me. One is that I don't think in terms of Democrat and Republican. So if you're expecting me to harp on about liberal and conservative and jibba-jabba of this nature, no. My polarities, my methods of thinking are good for my folk, good for white Americans particularly, but other whites around the world too, secondarily, and then for what's not, strikingly, boom, boom. Okay? I find it to be a more applicable divide, a more important divide, a more organic, more life-affirming way of viewing the issue. This being said, there are proposals made by the conservatives that sometimes are good proposals, they make sense, they have economic validity, they have, they provide soundness, right? And there's proposals made by the other side that at times, saying a monoracial state would make sense too. My only problem with them is that we have this soup of people with us here that make the whole calculus really rather difficult, right? That's it. On the other hand, the New Deal itself as such, or what you would call basic welfare state or safety net, no, I don't have any problem with this. I myself was part of the working poor, and I participate in these programs now, right? Because I busted my ass, and I had epilepsy the whole time I busted my ass. So, if you try to make me feel guilty, I'll tell you, okay? It's this, or I steal from you directly. That's that. I'm not going to be cowed into some sense of feeling as though I owe people. No, my back's cricked and the rest. And I've done a lot more work than many of you that will try to browbeat me or think you're better than me. So, you see? Now, this being said,
I'm going to survive either way. I could eat on $80 a month. Yeah. I mean, I'm perfectly. If I wanted to reduce a few things out of my life, potato carrot stew is pretty dang cheap. And that's my favorite food, so. You know? Right. Yeah. That's about where I sit at. So, and that doesn't need much meat in it. And the little flavor packets that you make up, they're exceptionally cheap. You know, a few dollars a month. So, that being said, this whole little powdered milk boxa thing that Trump's proposing, you know, I'll just stockpile the stuff. Right. But, it's going to cost him his power here, you see, folks. And this is where nationalists have to be ready to fill the breach, like good, smart people. You see, it's all about needs and wants. It's all about necessities. Life's all about these things. And when these Rust Belt and blue state rural and red state rural working class people feel that, because they're the main recipients of these programs, not inner city blacks. That's a whole nother ball of wax there. It's a counting trick. You're being a numbers trick. Some voodoo. Media voodoo. So, when they take the hit, and they will, and they have to go through this weird South American food bank, national food bank, because, you know, I'd like to make it clear that when Venezuela and Colombia and Costa Rica and the rest do these sorts of things, and these countries do Argentina, you know, had actual, like, you know, come to the location, government gives you a box of food aid, UN aid relief style. It's considered third world and backwards. In fact, it's considered grossly inefficient and anti-free market. Is usually how it's framed, particularly by the libertarians. You know, look at them, they went back to feudalism. And yet, it's almost as if they don't have these universal principles that they harp on about you. You see, what's good for the people, what's not. Right? If you want to look at it like this, the current SNAP program keeps a lot of middle-class white people employed. It puts money into their jobs. And I'm perfectly willing that that money continue to go right there. You see? But, you know, I'm not a commie. And I don't want to undercut all of you working and middle-class white people, so I can give to the military-industrial complex, really the Israel Defense Fund is what that should be called, the Israeli Defense Fund, and then my corporate buddies on Wall Street. Okay. But I knew Trump would do this. I promoted him because I wanted him to do this. You see, rural and working and middle-class America must be brutalized. They must be brought out of their slumber, you see. And being Ronnie Reagan like this, with the tax-a-wham, and the whole, let's roll everything back to 1900, because, you know, the Gilded Age was a real good time to be working class. Bullshit. Okay? The best time in America to be working class was between 1935 and about 1975. Yeah. That's the truth. Everything before and after that, kind of sucky in various ways. The first colonial period probably wasn't that bad, because remember, after you did your indenturement, you almost always were assigned your own land and became your own man. Terrible system. Some of you died. But, you know, compensation is sort of not so terrible, at least. However, once that was shut off and the Homesteading Act was boxed in, because large corporations always abuse those acts, being urban working class would have bit big dick. Yeah. Okay? So, and these would have been the people who exactly, explicitly depend on these programs still today. Today, there are still large groupings of rural and urban poor whites, mostly working class, mostly who do work, it should be noted, who aren't just drug addict bums and all this buying cigarettes. But this is fucking fantasy. This is the same bullshit that was pumped up under Ronnie Reagan. Okay? Fuck this anti-white narrative. Fuck this anti-Volk narrative. You understand? This narrative is anti-nationalist, period. This narrative is the exact narrative of the Judas sorts who would sell Christ. I will not just sit calmly and watch this happen twice in my lifetime. No. Reagan was a stuffed suit. And Trump was always, whatever. Did you ever think he was anything but what he was? An arrogant, puffed up, wannabe little emperor. Yeah. He'll serve his purpose lovely. He'll serve his purpose perfectly. He will enlighten the people through his actions. They will see this loyalty to this system and to these weird, principles that don't have any reality, that don't have any basis in their life, that don't bring life or goodness for them. These are misplaced. And while they're ooh and stunned from it, that's when better information can be thrown into the breach. That there is a better way, based on community and family and home and hearth and heritage and do, yeah? Right. Common good over selfish interests. And we must break the bonds of usury. Okay? Those are the two highest rules, the two highest laws. Once we have done that, everything else can be arranged for each particular ethnicity within our Volk, way of wanting to do things. We can live like Switzerland. In a loose confederation that stays out of each other's static. Okay? Just as long as those two basic rules are observed, everything else will fall into place. Nature will have been obeyed. And if nature's rules are followed, you do well. Creation has rules. Okay? Right? Do you see? And this Trump is in defiance of these rules. He thinks that you can strip the base, the working class of a society and keep it strong. You cannot. The working class are the base, the middle class, the upper class. You need a strong foundation or all of this crashes down. It crashes down. Do you understand? You can't hollow out the base. This is not some kind of soft-headed Marxism or anything. It's practical, hard-headed statesmanship. If you want a stable, long-lasting society, you have to have a strong working class that are secure in their homes, that will pass on a heritage, a way of doing things to children who can take their place at one day. You have to have a managerial class, middle class. And there's always going to be people who simply rule. I don't know. There it is. It's almost always going to be a closed shop oligarchy. Okay. Let's make it so it's an oligarchy the best. That's usually called an aristocracy. I don't know. There's certain ways we could devise to do this, like duels. Duels allow for at least the most physically prowls, those who can fight the best, to have say. It also, those sorts of dueling, honor-based societies, the Herren folk have to lead, so they're usually like right at the front of the ranks. They earn their place. Because if, they die. Lots of them die. I mean, the early Roman patricians were like this. They later became effeminate, but, the British Normans were quite the personal leadership sorts. You see, this isn't a bad system all in all. And but the key thing is that all of these, even the Normans, depended on the peasants. This is why when you see things about how they brutalized the English peasants, this is just a fucking fantasy. The Normans were keen administrators, and they understood that those peasants being able to get their crops brought in and their animals dealt with and all that was their money. That was their money. No. You understand? They tried to administer as best they could. Now, of course, there was always some differences, and Norman lords were rough. However, any children that would have occurred through abductions, they would have had to have claimed by law as bastards. So it's not such a terrible thing to be a Norman lord's bastard son. You would be a Norman. So, you see? Not such a terrible thing at all. I don't think that too many peasant girls were actually forced by very many lords. Do you know what I mean? I just don't think it actually happened like that. Call me odd. So, right? But even in these systems, again, you're not hollowing out the lower class. You're actually just elevating members. The church, again, elevated members of this lower caste. But the idea was always that you needed peasants so that you could bring in taxes. Okay? And this works for any government system we'd like to choose, whether it's, if we look at communism, why does it fail? It guts the bottom, and it stultifies the middle. Right? And also, the top becomes sort of a timeless blob, you see, in communism. You see in real communism, in the Soviet Union, the Politburo became a hospice ward, right? I mean, they were like 90-some odd years old by the end. It was ridiculous, just a group of geezers with lines out of their necks and like some kind of cyborg project, And then the middle class, the sort of bureaucratic functionary class of the Soviet Union, they were just petrified. And I don't mean scared, I mean just there was going to be no internal change. And by this time, the bread lines were forming again, just like under the Tsar, and the only thing that had to happen was bang go. Some of the police and army said, these people are right. To the capital. And that's that. Do you see how it works? Thus ended communism. In a nutshell, It was predictable through the whole structure of the thing, just like America's demise is predictable in Western Europe. Whew. I mean, talk about gutting out the bottom. You're just bringing in barbarians to literally burn the foundation out. Collapse is the only thing that can come. Collapse is the only thing that can come of this. However, this might not prove to be such a bad thing, since, I have a theorem. Would you like to hear it? It's that white people, by living in the cold place that is Europe, the terrible, wretched place that is Europe, for as long as we did, we became stronger. And when our other ancestors were trapped out on the steppe, just out on the South Russian steppe for several thousand years, that made them perfect. And the combination of the two people, when put into primal environment of struggle, is irresistible. In other words, at some point, the destability, the craziness, the chaos, in France, in Germany, in Italy. I mean, they're eating women in Italy, for fuck's sake. Never mind. No, we're not going to get lost on the details. And the rest there, is going to come as such that the instinct, the pack hunter instinct that allowed our ancestors to beat down things like saber-toothed tigers, cave bears, and very large wolf dog ancestors that, on top of hunt things like the auroch, which was the ancestor of the cow, that is about the size of an elephant, a magnificent animal indeed. Our ancestors were perfectly capable of slaying all of these animals with ease. So, remember that. Okay? We were quite the little clingers to life. We have a gene in us that's been honed, right? And when it's triggered, we just go. It's just there. It's just marathon happens, right? Okay? At some point, the craziness will come to such that there's no way to avoid, there's no way to evade, and the French may not like the Germans too much, but I'm sure they like each other a lot more than they like Afrikaners. And I don't mean white Afrikaners. I mean the black Suudland peoples, who are raping and pillaging their streets. It's kind of like the Yankees and the Confederate people in America. Okay, they have significant cultural and historical differences. I can grant that. Sure. However, what do y'all think about Chinese, Mexican, Puerto Rican, black, Hindu, Semites overrunning you? Oh, you like each other a lot more now, I think, huh? You see? I mean, okay. And again, this whole destabilizing the foundation thing, which Trump is definitely just seems dead set on doing like an idiot, right? Since he ran on a America first, not American business first, and not, I don't know, the libertarian wing of fucking the chaotic division of the GOP first. No, you know. Those blue state people, you know, they're the base of America. They're the manufacturing base, what's left of it, okay? And any people or party or ideal or idea set that can gain their loyalty has a great power. It can be kingmaker, okay? Between them and the rural agricultural state whites, that's outright, there's checkmate, okay? And the Trump and the Democrats and the GOP and the snaky media, you know, have slowly beat them to where they trust none of them. You see? Their last hope is that Trump will bring some kind of jobs by slowing down immigration and such and so forth. But again, these people, even though they work, are the same people who reply on Snap. I mean, there it is. You know, that's really factually true. Do you understand? And the same funding is going to be cut for the food banks too, so they're going to get double whammied. Like, ooh. Right. So, you see how this works? Now, this is what you call austerity government. This is not the way to keep working class people on your side. It also doesn't do anything good for working class people. Okay? Maybe it's just me, but I don't favor America in fact, I don't favor any place being treated the way these austerity governments are. So in other words, when these bankers did this to Greece, I objected to it then. I objected to it vocally then. When they did it to Cyprus, the weird rip-off they did to those people, yeah, of course. I mean, it's unjust. The people who did that should be put on a scaffold and it's unjust. You understand? It's unjust anywhere it's done. You understand? Because these people that are going to get shafted, by and large, are working people who are decent folks. Okay? That they should take it up the backside more, while corporate people who do nothing, who have never worked a day in their life in many cases, should just accumulate more and more and more, is obscene. Okay? If you call that Marxism, I'll spit in your face and slap you. Right? No, it's known as justice. You see, there's a certain, I don't know, give and take between the upper class, the middle class, the upper class, the lower class, the middle class. You know what I'm saying? Right? And when that's all in harmony, there's stability. The upper class profit, they rule, they get to have their little intrigue amongst each other and so forth. It's what they do. The middle class get to have their managerial lives and live a little bit better than the working class, and the working class live well. And they don't think to even want to upset the cart. They just want to row the boat, and, you know, everybody goes places. Wow. I mean, if that's Marxism, you're cracked. Okay? You're cracked. Okay? No, I like to call that common sense. You understand? Good old-fashioned common sense. And that inside of all this, we should have a financial system that, again, you know, brings some profits here, and leaves enough money here, such that, yes, these people here can sustainably and steadily buy most of the products they create, thus eliminating a lot of the need for export and all of that competition. Wow. That's some crazy communism shit, isn't it? No, huh? It's, you know, because again, notice, I'm not even saying that some people, you know, won't be richer. No. Now, at most, what I would like to do, so sure we actually have the best at the top, is these people here at the bottom, the ones that are smart, you pay for them to be educated, to become whatever it is they're capable of becoming, so they can be more useful to all of us. We can leverage our abilities, or group abilities, through a little bit of applied charity. Yeah. Right. Not a weakness, you know, when done correctly. Doesn't have to be done just uniformly to anybody. That's stupid. You see? Right? But again, you know, say you have some working class guy and he has a 250 IQ and he's like a genius and can design things in his mind. Well, Wouldn't you want this guy to be something other than just a bricklayer? Okay? It's not a crazy proposals, you know what I mean? All common sense, you know? Just like you want the bricklayers to have enough money so they can buy the stuff from the TV factory and the radio factory and the whatnots, right? The car lot and this and that, and pay their house bill, taxes, and yeah, and have enough left over that they don't go bankrupt if they just happen to be sick for a week, yeah? I mean, this is all pretty commonsensical stuff that I think that, yeah, almost everybody on the planet Earth should be on board with when you think about it, you know? But, again, the Trump people seem hell-bent on not doing this. You see, because remember, these minimum wage increases, and within in the context of this tax, which I haven't met anybody that it seems like it's going to change their tax significantly, right, at the lower echelons, it isn't going to bring working class prosperity. You see, because inflation is going to eat most of that up because of our funding system, this FUBAR, you know. Okay, that's the big, white elephant we're not supposed to like talk about there, but there it is. Yeah, it's the inflationary debt-based money system. Yeah, so these little petty wage increase, that won't fix anything as long as we're running up the debt perpetually and increasing the amount of taxes paid on that debt perpetually. Do you understand? Right? That has to stop. That has to be, we have to be manly, and we must simply and take over the Federal Reserve Bank, turn it into a public bank, negate its debts, and simply reissue its money as interest-free, debt-free currency that functions as public payments and tax. That's that. Gordian knot cut. $20 trillion in debt. People responsible for said crime against the Volk put on this platform. And the rest would be a little bit of dangle time. All over. Then liberty could have its way. And all that, you know? See, you can't have liberty when you're perpetually in debt to another. The debtor is slave to the creditor. You see? And so we are all slaves, all Western European countries, because they all have this debt money based financing at their heart. You see? So we must end this slavery. Then we can fix and improve and bring up the conditions of the slaves and rebuild from the rubble what can be rebuilt of what is the West. Donald Trump is a tool that will bring us to that in the end. Thank you. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Oh, we're pretty good, actually. We got to go outside today and get some things done, get some of our gardening and whatnot on the trajectory to start. It is just the nominal, second day of spring, so, it'll be okay, I think. Well, we do have quite the little rooster tail there. Might drive us insane by the end of this. We're kind of fidgety about these sorts of things, but yeah. As you can tell, we don't try to awe you to death with our Le Majesté, our appearance. That isn't, no, that's a waste of money and it'd be arrogance, frankly, right? No, we're here to say words. And today we're going to talk about basically how political correctness is destabilizing the foundations and really the entirety of our national health, our national entity, what could be called the countries of the West. The West itself even is being destabilized. So, when I say political correctness is destabilizing our nation, just apply it to the one you're in, or you can apply it generally across the entire West, because yes, the thing about it is that it's a rebellion. It's not a ruling concept, this political correctness. It's a rebellion, but this destructive, chaotic rebellion, it has nationalists and populists and paleoconservatives and pretty much everybody who could even accept the idea that there are groups of people based on whatever basis, that have some kind of collective life
claim or life right to life, you might say, even, right? Um, Now the real reason why we're being just so thumped by these people, of course, is because yeah, the PC folks dominate both political parties, the media, the academia, and again the finance too. So the destruction of our homes, our families, our way of life, right from birth to grave. Yeah, that's all. That's all agreed upon by the so-called two parties, or by the spectrum of parties if you have more than two parties, if you have one of those proportional systems where you happen to be at. But it amounts to the same thing as what we have in America, as these other countries where there's a few decent politicians in these mixes, but generally the so-called right-wing party are basically just leftists from yesterday. I mean, our GOP are exactly that. They're leftists from 1975 or so, 1980, 1990 maybe even. I mean, some of the more laissez-faire, social, liberal GOP country club types are indistinguishable from the Democrats except for in a few economic proposals that they have. So, right? So, let's admit that this is a fixed thing, and it isn't just the liberals, the establishment country club conservatives are lockstep. One hand washes the other. Neck deep in this, okay? All right. So all of this horrible routing, this destruction of our way of life, this chaos that it's causing, the destabilization, right? These are all real problems. Let's have no doubt about that. And of course, there are those who want to this person, those, these, that, whatever. The fact is that collectively, all of us allowed this, and we allow it to continue by allowing those that are treasonous to us to have control over our money, our jobs, our homes, our politics, our media, and our academia. We allow that. It's a choice we've made. Now, it's not necessarily an individual choice, but at a societal level, this choice has been made, at least by not making a choice to not allow it. And by we, I mean everyone, but in particular here, who I'm talking to, are all of us that dissent from the multicultural, political correct agenda, right, of diversity and tolerance and equality and less and less and less whites, right? Right? White self-flagellation, white self-hate, and all this other, right? Now, we, particularly the people who object to all of this, Martin Luther King worship and white self-hate again and so forth, and the altar of white evilness and all of this, the very religion of white evil, right? Unique white evil, right? Well, we've allowed this. It's easier once you accept it, once you just own it, then you can change it. And because in the end, if you'd object and you don't do anything effective to stop a thing, you may as well have agreed with it. It's myself too. I'm not cutting myself slack here. I mean. Okay? So if we just accept this as truth, we could go further faster. Right? We could get a lot further, a lot faster. Now, to be sure, it's a lot easier to blame others. All these others did this, all this. And our enemies have acted against us. Have you? No doubt. I'm not unaware of this. I'm not a baby. Yeah? But the fact is, your enemies are expected. Snakes are snakes. Your reaction to the snake, though, determines many things vis-a-vis your survival, the encounter with the snake, Right? Okay? Now, just take the responsibility, and it'll be so much easier, right? This is a personal and a group thing. It's both, So, there's no shame. It just is, These conditions were brought about. Now we'll change them, but we have to accept how they were brought about. And apathy allowed a great deal of it. Boom. Now, Now, it's again, it's so much easier just to allow your emotions to overwhelm you and get all, we're gonna die, we're all doomed. No, that's an illusion. We're rough in the surf now. Oh, yes, the water's high, the wind's blowing quite a bit. There is some rough seas. But we'll make it. At least the lion's share of us, the bulk of us, will make it. All of us, perhaps not. But we as a group, the Western peoples, the white Americans and Canadians and Australians and New Zealanders and the various several peoples of Europe, yeah, yeah, they'll continue to exist. Okay. Though there will be groups of them that are in heaps of trouble from time to time. South Africans come to mind in this regard. Now, in that case, we fully understand the other desire to just kind of let it linger, to be sort of complain, complain, go back to apathy, complain, complain. In this case, you're enabling the system. You're being codependent with this system. And in a situation like as hard pressed as the heaps of trouble the people in South Africa, and this kind of codependence could be deadly. Those people are. Whew. So what would be best? Well, what would be best, obviously, is to fix as many of these problems, this diversity, this tolerance, the mass immigration, the white hate, the media that hates us, the academia that hates us, all in one stroke. All of that requires money. Okay? So, think about it. Money's the root of these evils. And if we fix these evils, then those that come after us won't have to deal with the problem, but they'll have a better homeland that is safe, sound, and stable. Okay? So, proposition. By taking the money power from our enemies, we could go a long ways towards fixing all the problems that hound our steps. The media is funded by money. The academia is funded by money. The warmongering that is the excuse to bring all these boat people here all the time and these refugees all the time, that's funded by our money. So forth and so forth and so forth. Control our money and our public spending, right? And take away these people's spending and power, and we're free of their evils. Because, if our enemy can't fund their policies, they can't implement them. The entire system's based on bribes, it's based on preference, based on wealth, it's based on the ability to include or exclude people from wealth, from the easy credit, and so forth. And all top of all of that is their values, their egalitarian one world values, right? Well, again, if they can't fund this system that they've created, this corrupt system that's hollowing out the West, then they can't implement the policies. And if they can't implement policies, they're not effectively ruling. And the reverse works for us as well. If we can fund the policies we want, if we are socially, economically stable such that our politics can be concentrated and we can get what we want like these people do, then we will be the power. Nation versus oligarchy. Nation wins. Huh. So, I would propose that having control of our money and our finances and from a grassroots level up, not from the top down, the other way, having control of it that way would free us from the market, which is effectively the 1% of wealthy traders that are this international class of usurers and gamblers and thieves and carpetbaggers who are, working over and stealing from the rest of us. It would free us from the quote-unquote world, which is really just these usurers and their international corporations that they've built up around themselves using, again, this access to credit, the sort of ability to include and exclude. And we'd be able to smash them. Because if we controlled the money, if the money, instead of being issued by the Federal Reserve or these other fake front, so-called Bank of England, Bank of France, and so forth, if the money wasn't issued by them, but it was issued by a real public bank that actually functioned just a little bit of over profit, and the rest of it went to the treasury, then we could have an immense amount of money, and we could better finance ourselves more stably, and we could be free of these usurous scum. And because these usurous scum and the 1% would be the media parasites, the lawyer parasites, the academic parasites, the debt collection parasites, and all the other scum, the politicians and other trash that have been getting bribes and loans from these people. Boom. Now that's thousands of minor little problems solved at a whoosh. One knot cut, thousands of problems solved. So we further state that by gaining control of this money supply, at a public level, and controlling the debt at a private and a public level by cutting these Rumpelstiltskin usurers out, I mean, they're thieves at any rate, that by doing so, that we'd have control of our jobs and homes, both as a singularly and as a group, as a nation, right? And that solves most of the rest of the issues that 99.99999% of normal working class, middle class people have in common. From there, the upper class can fight about the big issues. Now, it seems that, to me, that we could have this control, that we could have it by pooling labor, money, and time together, united for common ends. We could work the same way these corporations do, just with different outcomes desired. They want to work for one world globalism, we'll work for ethnic nationalism. In need be, for now, we'll help support a sort of stronger version of civic nationalism that helps fold into our beliefs. You see, that helps create the illusion of a united front. It's much better than being some kind of fanatic in the end, right? Because in the end, we get what we want at any rate. Now, we say that one way that this could be done is by using what's known as a mutual benefit society. And this would act sort of as an induction society for all the other things we're going to think. Think of it like the umbrella. Once you get into this benefit society, then the other goodies here become open to you. See, this way we can filter who we want and include who we want. We can associate with who we wish to and combine efforts. And, this nonsense about even if you did this, altruism, that's bullshit. That pathological altruism shit is fucking egghead gibberish designed to demoralize you. It's garbage. You can choose to be weak or you can choose to be strong. That's that. Now, so the Mutual Benefit Society acts as an umbrella, right? And then there's a land management corporation, which basically is just a group land ownership operation where you use these lands not as personal assets, but as business assets. Your personal assets you'd own individually by yourself, ideally in time at least, right? There would be a farmer's market built up underneath this that would sell these products and allow people to bring handicrafts and such that they built at home to, sell. And this allows these people to act as a self-support mechanism and get the idea that, yeah, we can be a market too. We don't need New York. We don't need London. We don't need Chicago or Hong Kong or Paris, Okay? Moreover, there would be cooperatives, which again are just, a way to get around being enslaved to Amazon and the rest of the so-called brick and mortars that still exist, okay? It's not crazy to be in charge of your own commerce and your own production. Farmers market, productives. Not very, very difficult. From all of this work, from this land management, from the work that from these farmers markets and cooperating, and all of the work that would be around that, pull up capital, pull up savings, right? Reach out to the common people in the area around, try to get the required number of subscriptions, and form a credit union. Boom, this is a poor man's bank. Now you have financing. Now you can moderately leverage, now not crazy leverage, but moderately leverage, hire professionals to manage this, of course, your savings to your advantage. You can build up this capital, that capital, light industry, you could make fuels, you could, go all kinds of different ways, right? The green community of tomorrow, whatever you want it to, right? Now, these are ideas I would like. I would love to go with green fuel, renewables, thermal, geothermal, and these sorts of things, This would be of great interest to me. Trash destruction through solar concentration of heat and, these sorts of things. And a credit union allows this, see? Now, you may want other things. Hey, that's what politics is about. It's about debating out what we want and finding ways to make it work for everybody without violence. Yeah, right. Now, from here, you have the ability to fund your own community media. You have the ability to fund, a housing association to help your people and other people in the community stay housed, stay clothed, stay fed type situation, You have you have the ability to basically create civic education funds that give you potentially, as you take all of these things underneath this umbrella as a whole, this gives you the ability, potentially, the Civic Education Fund, of course, allows you to put your good values, your nationalist values about loyalty, duty, honor, courage, that there's not all struggles are fights in the sense that they're not fist fights. Some fights are with the ground, some fights are with math problems, some fights are with, you know what I mean? Right? But they're all heroic, and you want to try to win. And you want to try to win not just for yourself, though that's good. You want to try to win for yourself and for your people, for your community, for your family, for the greater identities that envelop who you are, you know? Okay, so there's your civic education fund. Now, if you take all this as a whole, you have control over, potentially, at a certain level at any rate, right? Just by banding together and working hard, education, food, clothing, money, and housing. Now, you could again expand out to all sorts of things, making fuel, local utilities, local small industries, and light and heavy industries, potentially mining, timber, biomass, etc. You see, you know. You also have them funding now to do the kind of full spectrum information dominance that allows the current system to get its way to push its policies, you see. You'll only be able to do it on a smaller level, but you'll have everything they have on a microcosm. You'll have it on a smaller level, you see. And this will give you a good solid footing from which to Irishman it out, You ever seen the Fighting Irish thing? Now, remember, in the end, all of this is about having our own narrative, right? Our own story, our own history, our own vision, our own truth, right? That is based on Western, white, Christian identity, culture, community, nation, history, heritage, on the home, on family, as well as on duty, loyalty, courage, and honor. And that's 100% our prerogative. That's our absolute right to control our mental space and our emotional space, and to put our minds into an ideal place of our creating, of how we want to be. And we don't want to be flagellating ourselves. We don't want to hate ourselves. We don't want to roll around in the dust, We want, to be able to think of our culture, of our history, of our past, and be proud and feel that it's a source of strength, you see. And what we would really like to see is this is, since it is 100% legal, we'd love to see thousands of people working in legal, lawful organizations that are chained together in a meaningful, logical, hierarchical way, like we've just outlined, for our group ends, because we believe this would do so much to ensure that these problems, which threaten our nation, our communities, our homes, our family, our children, our way of life, would stop. Okay? Now, we would love to see that. We'd love to see just thousands of men going out to the suburbs and the rural area and building and working and doing lawful things in organizations that are bigger than just their individual aspirations and ambitions. And I'm not saying that everybody, can't have these. Yes, you can. You can make them work in balance. Now, this revolutionary act of understanding that not all struggles are violent. They're not physical. Some of them are mental. Some of them are with material things. Some of them are with understanding, the intellect. You see, these are all layers of battle, and they all are about making you stronger in the end, And the greatest strength of any movement, of any political movement, is to be based in the people with a strong basis in their past, their daily life, their aspirations, their wishes for the future, you see, and to be able to offer jobs, prosperity, peace, stability. These are great strengths, right? Now, this would seem to be a great stride forward if this was done in, again, thousands of small villages, towns, ruralish small cities even, You know, there are small, basically all white cities up in the north and central northwest that are, you know, they're relatively large compared to the towns I would like to see, but they're not unwieldy large, and this sort of thing could work there. You know, men coming in and revitalizing buildings, turning those buildings into, say, cooperatives, where other people who are associated with these men from outside of that city who are working in small towns out there bring their products and sell them. Then they make money through commerce, through good old fashioned, honest commerce. Now, that's not even insane. Okay? It's down to earth, it's meaningful, it connects with people at a personal level, and it gives these votives of a community based, ethnic, identitarian, you know, narrative, you know, the real opportunities needed to interact with people at a close level, at a human level. Now, this would be a power base, a real power base for nationalism, an actual basis, a stone, a step on the way to real authority, real, you know, social, political, economic, full spectrum authority, right? Now, this could well be the difference in the end between remaining and being outcasts and being included in a meaningful new community of communities, as it were, that's dedicated to our identity, our culture, our history, our heritage, and most of all, our prosperous, free future. Now, in every single one of the Anglo countries, what I'm proposing and what I say could be critically the difference between a chaotic future and a more certain future, this is all legal. It's 100% legal to work together with other men with the intent to make carrots to sell them. It's 100% legal to work to make small handicraft items and sell them. It's 100% legal to log wood. It's 100% legal to create green energy. It's 100%, you get it? All of this is legal. It's 100% legal to propose, you know, all sorts of things for government and this and that could help us, and then the rest. These are all legitimate. They're lawful. Now, the names of the various organizations, what you'd have to call them in certain countries changes, but in essence, it's utterly, perfectly legal to have a mother corporation that you belong to as a member, and that gives you access to other sub corporations that give you benefits like access to cheaper housing, this, that, the other. Okay, so what I'm proposing is 100% legal with various modifications in every place where we speak English. Okay, right? Now, and the fact is that in every Anglo country, it's 100% legal for many people to work as one legally, you know, multiply their skills and efforts to the mutual benefit of all that pitch in the group effort. That's the basis of Anglo-Saxon capitalistic corporate commerce, for God's sakes, right? And since, you know, they're going to have a hard time saying, why can't you? Why can't 30 of you get together, invest a little bit, keep investing a little bit over time, then use that money to buy capital, land, or some old factory that you can, you know, renovate to your use, and then make things, make food, make fiber, make oil crops, make, you know, from the fiber make cloth, from the oil make fuel, from the food obviously. You see what I'm saying? Maybe even grow some of the food and divert it to husbandry, you know, goats, pigs, chickens, and so forth. Why can't you do this? What is preventing you, other than the idea that somehow this isn't some fight against the system? Well, God damn it, it is. This system is about centralized control. And every one of you that has even the smallest piece of capital, the smallest control over your own job, your own future, your own dignity, your own worth, you are in active rebellion against them. Now, you know? Now, that's much more meaningful than a lot of what I've seen happen up to this point, at any rate. Much more meaningful. And my sense is that PC's destabilization of everything will create more and more and more people that are going to want to run together into 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 person bands of men and women with children too, who will naturally work as small villages, like I say. Now, if they have some kind of framework to build upon, like I'm proposing, where you have a company that helps you put your money together and save and multiply it, credit union. You have another one that helps you manage your assets, a land management or asset management corporation, and so forth. You see? Right? Now, also, to one of the ones I would have added into there, if when I'm thinking about it, is a charitable organization. So that as these people become more wealthy, they can help their local neighbors and gain their goodwill through fish and bread. Fish and bread. It's not crazy, people. It's utterly legal, like I say. It's more productive than marching in the streets and screaming. And frankly, our sense is that this could be really useful because it provides the basis for a real ethno-nationalist organization on in many different countries. And I mean, if there could be one for England, one for Wales, one for Scotland, one for Northern Ireland, Canada, United States, Australia, New Zealand, right? Every one of them can have their own party. They can all have their own little deals, but this provides a common sheet, right? I'm just saying. If the basics of it is that we need to be free of this money, and we need to be free of the PC elite that are their power comes from this money, by forming these credit unions and by forming these social, economic, political organizations that act to push these other people out and make them irrelevant, we achieve both ends. With that, I'm gonna go. You have a nice day. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Oh, it's another one of those days. But as it sits, China's all the rave today. Just for a while, actually, I noticed there's been kind of a build-up. It's almost like they want to box China and Russia into having to play together. I would try to divide them. I don't know. That would be me, But at any rate, China is the thing today because they, and get this now, I know, a repressive communist regime, and just keep your mind on that, because that's what the Chinese are, instituted one-man rule and a new thought paradigm control system. Whoa. I'm totally blown out of the water. Are you kidding me? Yes. See, now I'm going to get past the garbage that the media is going to have about all this. I don't care. One silly system's the same as the next silly. You know what I mean? Mao's gibberish was probably closer connected to reality than this new gibberish, and the reason for that is unlike these new leaders who are grasping for power now at the top of this, as Mao would put it, heap of contradictions that is modern China. Mao actually lived in the real world. I mean, think what you like about Chairman Mao, and I have some serious objections with the policies and outcomes that he instituted, but he did actually fight, actually retreat over a very long period, lose a humongous amount of the force behind him. I don't remember what it was, something like 90%. It's huge. And then pull that around into a political victory, reestablish himself, make a new base, and come back to I mean, we all know the history from there. I mean, say what you like, but he had a better understanding of the fundamentals of village life, of reality, for the very lowest people at any rate, because surely at some point when he was marching along there, he had to have kind of understood what it was like to be drudging, poor, always, never, no let up, like the Chinese peasants have been since antiquity. Okay. Now, this new paradigm that's being instituted in China, it's purely instituted at these rural peasants, and probably to a greater or lesser extent to the working urban masses. Those two peoples, when you see like modern prosperous China, that's the middle class and upper class. These other people, they don't live terrible. I mean, they don't live like they did if they were coolies, say, but it isn't ideal. And the peasants that are sort of almost like how Israel colonizes the West Bank, well, the Chinese have these sort of allotment of hand communes out on it's called the Yellow River out there. It's a big bend. It has it. It's a long bend, almost like the Danube has that real long bend, All right, well, except for this one goes this way. It's bowed in towards China. You see, this is all China down here. Okay. Well, they've tried multiple times over history to colonize this area, and the fact is that the Han don't take to the climate well. The natives, the nomadic people, both the Turkic peoples and the Mongol peoples, highly dislike the Han. That's a generalization, and of course there's going to be exceptions, and there's probably a little more harmony now because, well, I mean, the Chinese government stopped dropping well, not dropping, but setting nuclear bombs off in these people's traditional pasture land areas. Yeah, yeah, they did that to the Uyghurs. So if you ever wonder why do all these Uyghurs get mad at the Chinese and run around with sharp objects and stick them and spike them, yeah, it could have something to do with that. It's a traditional battle. It's been going on for 2,000 years, right? So this is nothing new. It's like the Tibetans and the Chinese, the Han, What you think of the Chinese or the Han. They they they're not particularly buddy ring around the rosy either. Nor the Mongols, nor any of the Turkic nomadic peoples out there, what used to be called Turkestan. No, they're not particularly philo. What is that? Siamese. I mean, they're not for the Chinese people, right? You know. Okay. Now, my sense is that these Chinese, these Han that have been forced to live out there, these party people that have been forced to live out there, the army that are, that's a punishment. That's a punishment garrison. I mean, that's where they send people they don't like. Like, oh, you're gonna go way out into the Tarim Basin to like Tokara and garrison that joint. It's a desert wasteland out there. Jeez. I mean, the city itself's nice because it's at an oasis and so forth. But either direction, it's pretty ruthless, right? It's not a pleasant place, and the natives, the Turkic, mostly Turkic natives now, are not particularly, again, hand friendly. Do you see? It's a punishment detail. Now, everyone, there's about what 1.1 billion Chinese. Of these, about 400 million live in poverty and in terrible places like this, in colonies along the Mongolian border, and they're essentially garrison colonies, but they're not called that, sort of strategic control points, if you wish. But they can't be good for the Chinamen that live there. I think that they'd rather live closer back to Mother China there on the sea plain there, which is much more prosperous, much more fertile. There are no natives that torture crops and steal your things and so forth. Okay. I mean, I'm just saying. Of course they would, right? But they also would like is a much greater share of the wealth that's generated from this. I don't know, this two-faced bargain, between the Chi-Coms and these Western industrialists, because it's the most. Everybody knows everybody's bullshitting everybody, right? Right? I hope they do. I mean, thank God, right? Because otherwise, somebody's getting played for a sucker here. Because the fact is that these factories, which are allowed to operate in China with almost no regulation whatsoever, they're quite. I mean, there are some pictures, some things from China, which are bad. That's starting to turn around. China's starting to clean up because, again, these disorders, these people under them are starting to, but that's only just slow, and it's only by immense pressure and this new thought or whatever wing wang that they've introduced is an attempt to clamp down on talking about the effects of this. What I've said here, the poverty in these rural areas, the poverty amongst the working class, the pollution and so forth, the horrible air quality, and it just goes on, right? There's just a million little things. It's actually not too much different, to be truth told, as the situation before when the Kuomintang, those are the people who rule Taiwan more or less off and on now. They did rule as a one-party operation for 55 years or so. And anyhow, they got to this kind of inept level, where the workers were left high and dry, where the middle class just got milked, where you know what I'm saying, where there was just these corrupt party heads, and the Chi-Coms before the ones the ones who were out in the rural areas doing the I don't know, resisting, you might say, they toppled this Kuomintang because this Kuomintang had left its people high and dry. It had sucked them dry. It had, you know what I mean? Made what they considered to be basically colonialist, two-faced bargains with foreign powers and so forth, And because the Chinese hand, for all of their faults, and they have a great number, but we won't linger on them, every peoples do. They have a few decent things about them. They're usually highly nationalistic. They have a thing about hands are the center of the universe. The celestial kingdom is the center of all beings. I mean, it's right. They're even more ethnocentric than any Hebrew has ever been. Okay, this has to be processed as part of your thinking when you think about the hand as a gentleman. It's just that's how it is, right? On the other hand, they are cruel taskmasters. So China for them is an abstract. These peasants that are being sent out to Central Asia, they're just the price for a defense of the main heartland. That's it, This has been imperial policy off and on since, which one is it? It's one of the very first dynasties. It's the people who built the walls. Is that the Qin? And anyhow, the very first people who built that wall also garrisoned out into that kind of loop of the river there with they're essentially identical to these communes, They were Han colonies, just like the Romans would do, but the Romans did it more orderly with better systems, and the Roman government didn't collapse immediately like I want to say it is the Qin that built the wall, the first wall, and this bankrupted them, building this giant fortification and manning it and so forth. And then, of course, the horsemen north of the wall had tiffs amongst themselves, and this pushed a great number of them into, that's right, that same exact place where, and this isn't a new game. This isn't a new game at all, right? The Chinese have off and on claimed a sort of leadership, a sort of rule over Tibet. Boom, boom, boom. It's fluctuated, but the claim's always been there. They've always claimed to have some sort of preeminence over them. Well, not always. There's periods of chaos where it isn't that way, but during the higher, like during the Han Empire, for sure, the Tang, for sure, Sung, for sure. Let me see. In fact, the very first, and I can't remember what the name of the empire is, but it's one of the second ones they founded. It pushed out into the Yellow River there. They've claimed a sort of rule over the entire western lands, they call it, Now, they never actually had it. Don't kid yourself. Or they never had it long. This period where they've controlled all the way to the mountains into almost Afghanistan, this is unusual. Usually it doesn't last this long for them. And the fact is that with their rulers doing all these shifty things, it looks like it's about to end again. Because again, remember, these nomads are proficient at being not where you would want them to be. They're not easily counted. They don't need the Chinese government's food, help, medicine, or anything. There's no knowing, truly, right? There's really no knowing, And they're warlike. They're extremely warlike historically. They like to make milk, mare and goat milk drinks, get loaded, and then they steal from each other. This is normal. This is for clans to just sort of, it's okay. It's no thing. It's just, they just let that slide, you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of deaths, but other than that, it's okay. They're interesting, these nomadic, steep people out there. And then the Han have no way to deal with them. I mean, they're not easily eradicated, rounded up. You understand? They're kind of in the middle IQ range, say, low end average 75, high end 80, like that. They're not particularly, they're about like the Taliban, just more mobile, you know. And the Chinese historically have never mastered these people. They've tried to absorb them, they've tried to bring them into their culture and all sorts of things. But most of these people see are Muslims now. They belong to Islam, and they would not at all be inclined. This is the twist of the thing. Something like ISIS that wants some worldwide. No, no, these nomadic people out there are not going to be interested in that. Oh, they take their weapons. I'm sure, sure, and they talk about friendship and brothers, and you know, right, and all that. But you can expect a strangulation later, because that's how they deal with their brothers when they take power. See, they're ruthless people. You know, they only care about their basically their traditional grazing and pasture lands. Other than that, there's very little concern for anything amongst them. It's remarkably ethno-tribal centric. I mean, remarkably, right? I admire it myself. You know, and the Han have never been able to break these people down or take them out of this state. They've tried. Oh Lord, they've tried for sure several dozen times throughout history. It just failed, you know. No other people have been. The Mongols, you know, themselves were this kind, but even they, essentially, the portion that were the administrative elite of the Mongols, became sort of urbanized. Not these Central Asian Turkic peoples. They, uh, yeah, they have their own little thing they do, and they live in some of the most difficult, hard. I mean, Afghanistan's almost nice compared to some of the other places they dwell. Right? They're tough, right? No, the Maoists learned to leave them alone. You know, they recruit as many as they can. They police the roads and the fertile lands as best they can. But the wastes where these people roam, that's left to them. You know, even the Chinese just they don't have the manpower to deal with this kind of thing, and it seems they won't have the political ability soon. Because remember, once these peasant colonies out here historically have left, and they always have left. They haven't just stayed in place to be slaughtered. They're stupid, you know, because they're always dependent on the central government. They're always an appendage of the imperial policy, you know. Well, once they do start to leave, and they will. In this case, the nominal reason will be, well, you know, if you were a peasant out here and you were making $400 a year, and you could go down here and make, say, $1,000 a year, what would you do? Okay, boom, boom. It's not difficult to comprehend, you know. But beyond that, they also, again, these areas out along this river, while ideally they should be good farmland, and they could be, large grain type situation. They're terrible for these little commune garrison. They're almost like self-contained units, like kibutzes, kind of in a sense, that sort of a thing, you know. A Soviet commune, right? But not. So they're less economically specialized. It's not a good situation for these people. By comparison, at any rate, the main thing being is that yes, these Han again are not well loved by the original inhabitants at all. Um, in fact, again, these people historically have taken back all of the lands from the Yellow River into the Tarim Basin, off and on, at least 4 or 5 times I can think of. Right? This is just reality. So, any long-term plans that assume Chinese control over Tibet and the rest, as some kind of lockstead reality, no, that's not necessarily true. And my sense is that this change in little thought paradigm, this is indicative of the fact that the leadership in Beijing, and the sort of those eastern cities there, they know that, the gravy train's coming to an end, Could be that the Russians are arming these people, or it could be that the Taliban, ISIS, Al Qaeda, is arming them. It could be just that they've been stealing weapons from the Chinese, and they are smugglers and land pirates. I mean, they smuggle. I mean, it's an issue to them. So right. Could have bought the weapons with drugs. I mean, there's any other number of ways. I mean, do you understand? But they're resourceful people, and again, they're extremely tribalistically ethnocentric in the sense that there's the people in our tribe, the people confederated with our tribe, and that's it. And if you're not friends, you're foes. Right? And it's that simple for these nomadic people out in there. It's remarkably beautiful mindset, It works well for them. Given it's adapted to this environment. These environments are brutal. They're not forgiving. They're kind of marginal, even maybe, right? So, my sense is that the Chinese state media clamping down and the state academies and so forth. This only indicates, of course, that the Chinese know what I'm saying right here is that there's massive unrest amongst the peasants, the workers, these minorities in the Western lands is what they call them, and amongst the Mongols too. The Mongols in the that autonomous area in northern China. They're not happy with hand rule. They're not. Yeah, they're historically really not buddies, right? On top of that, it's kind of funny where everybody pretends that North Korea and China are buddies, No. So, this whole clampdown, it resembles North Korea exactly like North Korea, when the Soviet inputs, from the USSR were cut off. That's about the time when the Juche philosophy came in, Interesting, huh? I mean, so, and it didn't just cut off in 1991. They tapered them off way before this. There was a sort of build up into the 70s, and then it wound down, and then in, 90 some odd, it literally bottomed out completely. And China is not that close to the North. See, okay, look, the Changs hate the Wangs, who hate the Yings. Does this all make sense to you? Oh, and the Changs and the Yings? No, they're not friends. The Yings and the Wangs? No, forget about that. You see how this works? They're not. Because remember, these Asians are sort of territorially, tribally centered too, big time. Don't ever forget that. Communist, non-communist, free world, non-free world, democracy, non-democracy, they're centered on themselves. North Korea is fixed on Korea. The Korean language, as far as I know, only had the one word for skin color up until very recently. Think that through. That's a homogenous population, Right? So then we have, Japan. I think everyone understands just how, ethnocentric and focused the Japanese are, starting right with, family and their duty to their employers and all this weird. But to us it seems that, but for them it's really an expression of their unity as one, The Han have this too. However, it's like any group of people inside of a group of people. You can only abuse them so far before they're going to try to push to be recognized as, I hate to say this, equals, but to be treated like the other Han, as it were. And these ones in these what I like to call punishment colonies, which is, again, I can't imagine that the administrators and the military and the police there view it as anything else. They're traditionally the people to rebel. It's always been these dukes and these counts and, warlords and generals from these lands that have rebelled against the governments in, well, there have been a few different places the governments were located, but you get it on the eastern seaboard here, you know. Always. This is Chinese history. I mean, this is just how it is, you know. My sense is that these communists know that they've set this in motion against themselves, you know, and they're trying to clamp down on it, and they'll also try to slightly alleviate it, to give the peasants a couple more things, provide some more entertainment, which will be really propaganda, you know, a little more fertilizer, some debt relief, that kind of stuff, you know. Who knows? Might be enough. Yeah. Have a nice day.